So decision day for Welsh Rugby is looming. Supposedly it's at the end of October, which isn't long. Will Dave Reddin get what he wants? Is what he wants the best thing for Wales? Let's discuss it now, because they've just done an interview with the Welsh Rugby podcast. Dave Reddin interviewing there. Very interesting stuff. It was last week. I had lots of other videos coming out, but I did really want to discuss this because I think you can read between the lines of a lot of what he said, because he was very open, very descriptive. So I think we can make some decent inferences from it. And once again, please do excuse an Englishman talking about Welsh Rugby, but I am really passionate that Welsh Rugby is vibrant going forward, because it's such a hotbed of rugby union in the world. So we want it to work. Everyone wants it to work. No, yes, when England play Wales, I want England to win, but that doesn't mean I don't want Welsh Rugby to be healthy going forward. Please do inform me things I get wrong or things I've missed, some of the nuances in Welsh Rugby, because that's what Dave Reddin's trying to get his head round. He's trying to wrap his head around Welsh Rugby. And I will just say this at the beginning, I think as a person, Dave Reddin, perfectly respectable. I think he's very intelligent. I think from a sporting performance background, he knows his stuff. But of course, that doesn't mean he's going to make the right decision in this very different environment of Welsh Rugby. I think he might be missing one key thing, which I'll go into at the end. But let's go through this podcast and try and read between the lines, because there's some big stuff going on here. So when this podcast was recorded, he was getting ready, it seemed to me, clearly to present to the Welsh Rugby Board his idea, his conclusion of what he thinks the best system is going forward. And then there's a clear split in responsibility, if you like, where he can't make the final decision. It is the WRU board who ratifies that decision and says, right, this is the one we're taking forward. Does that mean it's going to happen straight away? No, there'll probably be challenges, legal challenges, whatever it is. But this is big. It looks like towards the end of October or this year, we will get this final decision from the WRU as a whole. Now, the WRU's been doing their massive consultation process where they've literally talked to everyone in Welsh Rugby, which is great, of course. You want to gather opinion. Is some of this optics by going through the motions, if you like, by saying, look, we're going to talk to everyone, even though deep down they already know what they're going to do? Maybe there's a bit of that, but also I'm sure there is some genuine fact finding as well. So maybe 50-50 on that one. Let me know how you stand there. Let's start with one of the first points raised. Jack Morgan saying he would leave Wales, he would play elsewhere if the Ospreys ceased to exist. Dave Reddin's basic response would be, we just can't listen to every player. We can't have indirect threats that people are going to leave. We've still got to make the right decision for everyone. That being said, Jack Morgan is the big player in Wales at the moment. If him and a couple of big internationals did leave Wales and then couldn't play for Wales, say, if that was the rule, that could be a big problem. Or they leave, they can play for Wales, but that means others might leave. Yeah, it is a problem, so I do think it's something they have to think about. The stat that came out is during the consultation, 1 out of 160 pro players in Wales voted for a two-club model, but that's not really surprising, because who would vote for them or their friend to potentially lose their job? You're just not going to do it, but I would like to know who that one is. Let me know your thoughts. No, only joking, but I wonder who that one person is. Then they went on to discuss the URC and do Wales really want to stay in the URC? And Reddin was very diplomatic here, but I think round the houses he was basically saying, if we can play in England, we would like to do that. He didn't say officially they'd talked about it. He basically admitted unofficially, of course, people have been putting feelers out to see if it was a possibility in the future. When questioned on their commitment to the URC, it was very much talk about contractual commitment rather than a deep desire to play in the URC. So I think clearly, to me, the WRU would like to exist within the Prem, say 12 teams instead of 10, but at the moment it's not possible. But definitely I think the feelers are going out there. But again, that's just a supposition. Let me know if you think they want to stay in the URC. Then Reddin went on to talk about how hard they were working right up until the 8th of October. And I was thinking, right, well, what are you working on? Is it trying to work out the optimal solution? Or is it, as I think, they are working on a presentation to convince the WR board that their optimal solution, which they already know, and they should vote for it? He said it was a slight nuance that between the executive and the board makes the final decision. That's not a slight nuance, that is massive. if the executive know what they want to do, but they can't convince the board, well, it's going to change or it's not going to happen. So that's more than a slight nuance. So I think that's what the WU were working on really hard and probably are continuing to work on really hard, is convincing the board that their ideas are correct, or Reddin's grand plan goes up in smoke. He did admit his plans might have to change, but if they change a lot, it's kind of, what's the point of him coming in and trying to put this, scientific, if you like, new performance framework in? So I think that's what's going on in the WRU, but again, let me know if you think it's something else. And yes, I've heard nothing from Reddin to say that they don't think it is the two-club solution going forward. They had suggested that in their initial document, that the two-club was the closest to their optimal, meaning that's what we want to happen. 2 men's pro teams matching with 2 women's teams, and eventually they pretty much share every support service and facility. That is what they want to do. I think, of course, those facilities would have to be built, so there would be some intermediate solution, but I think 2 teams straight away is what they want to do, and that's what they're presenting to the board. But again, that's me reading between the lines. Let me know if you agree or disagree. There was talk about potentially a transition period where they go to one model, then change to another, say a 3, then finally to a 2, but Reddin clearly says he would like to have it to happen straight away, rip the plaster clean off rather than prolong the pain. So that's what I think is going on, but here's the point that I fear he might be missing. I could be completely wrong, but I fear he is missing the fact that he can't retain Welsh club region identity by pretending he can keep 2 of the historic brands and take all the fans with him. Now, he did at the end say something that I think illustrates he misses the point a bit. He says, we've actually got over a transition before when they went to the 4 regions, and I think he thinks they retained all their identity from their previous clubs, which, from all the feedback from you guys, I don't think they did. And he thinks if they can do it once, they can do it again by going down to 2 or 3 and still retain that identity, that tribalism. And I don't think it can survive another separation of its soul. I think its soul got ripped a bit the first time, and it would get completely shredded the second time. And to pretend there is still identity in 2 teams that they can just carry over the fan bases, they coalesce, I think is very wishful thinking, and I don't think it's actually correct. And this is where I really want the Welsh fans out there to tell me if you agree with that or not. I actually think that if Wales are going to go to the 2-club solution, which I'm not saying is the best solution because I don't know, but if they go for it, I don't think they should pretend at all. I think they should say that this is not the old system. This is 2 completely new. In Wales now, professional club rugby is new. We are not carrying on the old tradition from the old clubs. They are now going to go back and exist as semi-pro clubs in the SRC, maybe one below, and that's where you go for your big tribalism. And we're going to start again. We're going to build 2 complete new identities. Whether it's East and West, I don't know, but don't pretend. Just say we're starting from afresh. Keep the old stuff in the SRC. We are sorry it's no longer pro rugby, and that's something people are going to have to get over. But if you want to see your Welsh stars, now you're going to come and watch 2 new entities, which they're going to slowly build an identity of. Sure, they're going to take a hit maybe in fan numbers to start with, but if it's the only thing you know as a youngster, maybe you can then grow in and get some new tribalism in professional rugby and keep the old tribalism in the SRC. If they're going to try and fudge it and say we can retain that tribalism by coalescing the 4 into 3 or 2, I just don't think it's going to work. It barely worked the first time, and that's what I fear that Reddin is missing. But please let me know down below all your reaction to that podcast, to the solution you think that Reddin is pushing, and do you think it's going to work? And what do you think of my idea that if you are going to go to 2, you just start again and say these are 2 new entities and the old ethos, the old history stays in the SRC? Could that work? I don't know, I am asking you, but that is my take on a very interesting podcast. We will find out the final WR solution very shortly, and then the battle begins in earnest, I guess. Let me know those thoughts down below. Do like, do subscribe if you appreciate these sorts of videos, and I'll catch you next time.